kind of camera, this range, what's the Mark II, is that like $2,400, something like that? Okay. And talk about your camera. What's
the GH1 is about, you can get it now for like $1,100, and that is with the kit lens that comes with it, which is pretty good. So as far as, yeah, like top of the line, as far as the most expensive, I suppose, is the new 1D Mark IV, which, is that one even available yet?
Yeah, it's available.
And then the Canon 5D is, which you're kind of paying for the full frame size sensor, is 20-some hundred. And again, like one quick technical thing to add about the advantage of the 5D, if that was your choice, is that because of the sensor being even larger than, say, this, its low light capability is even better. So that's a big advantage of the 5D, is that you can shoot in low light and it looks beautiful. But then the Canon 7D is kind of next tier down. GH1 is 1,100, 1,200. And then you get to these amazing Canon Rebel cameras like the T1i and T2i that are like $800,
yeah.
You know, with a kit lens. That's insane. And you know, clearly there's advantages of, say, the 7D and the 5D, but it's pretty amazing stuff that $800 can get you with a T2i. So that's probably one of the main reasons of this seminar, is that, you know, not everybody has a couple grand, but you know, most people can save up $800 if this is what they want to do. So that's what's amazing.
Okay, why don't you talk a little bit about advantages of your particular camera?
All right. And I don't know when we want to start show the footage or not. I don't know, but
how many pieces do you have? You want to show something now?
I have a couple minutes of stuff. I guess I could. Yeah. Well, first, okay. This is what I have. This is the Panasonic GH1, and it's for some reason, in my opinion, and of course, it's maybe because I'm the owner, so I'm biased. But to me, it seems like the Panasonic has kind of been given a little bit of a bad rap, or maybe it's not gotten quite the pedigree that the Canon cameras have. And hopefully, like the footage I show will maybe, you know, maybe make people reconsider the value of this. But I think this is an amazing camera. But one of the advantages to this, so I would like to talk about like what are the things that this has that may be better than the Panasonic versus the Canon, is that it already has a flip-out articulating LCD. And why is that an advantage? For the Canons, if you want to get a low angle, like on the ground, without buying another piece of equipment, if you want to be able to see what you're shooting, you literally have to crawl on the ground and kind of be able to look through the viewfinder to see what you're doing. Or if you want to get a high angle, again, you can't really see through all you've got is the eyepiece, but having a flip-out articulating LCD means that you can film yourself, so that's very cool. And I think some of the Nikons may have that as well. So that's a definite advantage.
That's a big advantage if you ask me. That's a very cool thing. I'd love to have that on this camera.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. The other really amazing advantage to this, and I don't have here's my props, but here's the thing. This being the format of lens mount for this camera is called Micro Four Thirds. And what's interesting about this camera is that unlike the Canons and the Nikons, which were modeled after 35mm still cameras that would have a flip-up mirror, that's what SLR, single lens reflex, this camera does not have a mirror. So you can utilize a lot of different kinds of lenses on this camera via an adapter that you can't necessarily put on the Canons or the Nikons, because the mirror that's inside those cameras will hit the back of these lenses. So the fact that this has no mirror means that you can use a ton of different old lenses. And the really cool thing, again, for us poor folks, us cheapskates, is that you can buy them used for a song at camera shops, because, I mean, they're probably going to start raising in value soon when people start realizing the value. But a lot of old manual still lenses for old 35mm cameras before, you know, auto iris and autofocus, nobody wants them, but they're great for filmmaking on these, and they're cheap. So that would definitely be an advantage for the GH1, is that it can use Canon, it can use Nikon, it can use Olympus, Minolta. I even have a C-mount adapter to mount 16mm lenses from an old Bolex camera. And so it's pretty cool what you can do with that. So those would probably be the two main advantages, yes.
Define cheap, and what would you use, maybe a type of lens that you would pick up a second or third lens, what would you use them for?
Well, okay, if for filmmaking reasons, and we're probably talking like, narrative filmmaking with actors and a story and lighting. And one of the advantages of using old lenses is to look for prime lenses as opposed to zoom lenses. Prime meaning that there is no zoom, that it's a single field of view, single focal length. So if I wanted an 85 millimeter for a certain type of look, I could go to a camera store and buy just a dedicated 85 as opposed to the zoom lens. And one of the advantages of that would be that the quality of glass is probably going to be a little better, meaning a nice, better, sharper image as opposed to a zoom, which has a lot more pieces of glass in it. And, old lenses were built very well, and they hold up, and they look great. And also the speed, speed meaning the aperture, meaning how much light they let in. Finding a dedicated prime lens, you're probably going to find something that with a faster aperture than, say, a zoom. So if you're having trouble getting enough light into your camera using your zoom because it's an f4 to 5.6, well, if you find an f2 85 or something, then that's a couple, 3 stops faster, and you don't have to light it as much, et cetera, et cetera. And the depth of field gets shallower when you open up wide, so that would be the advantage.
And how much can you find those lenses for?
You can find them depending on the focal length, but you can find them from $100 to $500, which is actually, for the quality of glass, is a steal. Because again, if you try to buy the modern day equivalent to those, it's going to be hundreds of dollars more. But that would include autofocus and auto iris. But the older ones are probably built out of metal and are better built. And for filmmaking reasons, having a manual focus ability and a manual iris, as opposed to everything being auto, all those, quote, disadvantages are actually advantages for filmmaking. So old lenses are great. So that's what I would recommend. You go to your camera shop and look for old prime lenses.
What about the ASA ratings on this camera? Are you happy with what you got there?
Yeah, well, let me the disadvantage, just so that it's not totally one-sided.
We'll go get into that.
Just one disadvantage that I know of that you may not, and I bought this camera before I knew about it, is that a disadvantage of this, as opposed to the Canon, is that there's no way to, while you're recording, to run a monitor out to, say, a high-def monitor. Once you hit the button, the HDMI is for playback only. So all you've got is this to tell if you're in focus or not. With a high-def image, with shallow depth of field, it's really, really hard to tell if you're sharp. So the Canons run an HDMI out, and I think it actually down-reses a little bit when you hit record, but still you can have a nice big HD monitor and kind of tell if you're sharp. So this was a pain. So that's definitely something to think about, is that it's the downside of any of these, if you're coming from the video side, is that it just is tougher to focus. You're having having a follow focus and somebody to probably be your focus puller is probably going to be a necessary thing. So it's a little more difficult.
One thing I really like about that camera is that fold-out screen, because it'll allow you, you don't have to have any other apparatus, but with that fold-out screen, you can fold it out and point it up to your face and lock your hands in like this and walk around with it and be looking at the camera. Whereas this one, I can't do that. And that's a cool thing about that. I want to talk a little bit about the disadvantages of this whole new medium. and
I may have a clip that will help illustrate that point when you get to it.
One disadvantage is the built-in microphone here. It's pretty much useless except as a scratch track for audio. Now, I recently got a little mixer, and you can put up a mixer that's mounted on the bottom and then put an XLR microphones in and mix it, and that may work pretty well. I know it does. That's an advantage, but otherwise, you're going to hear the camera with the built-in mic. You're going to hear the camera sound, and that's a drag. The thing I do like about recording sound on this thing is you got the sound synced to the picture on this little compact flash card. And that's pretty cool to me, because I don't want to deal with double system sound the way we used to with film. And I used to do that. I used to edit and sync it up.